We now come to the most important event in this conference, and that is the awarding of the J.C. Andrews Prize for 2022 and the J.C. Andrews Address. As I mentioned, this is the Institute's most prestigious award. This year's recipient has made a significant contribution to the food industry, research and academia in New Zealand and overseas, while also contributing to the NZIFST in a number of ways. Prior to coming to New Zealand, while at the University of Londrina in Perera, Brazil, she helped set up the Department of Food Science and Technology and participated in research projects there. In New Zealand, she worked for a number of well-recognised food companies in senior R&D or compliance roles, and also in business development and food and nutrition roles between 1981 and 2000. In Singapore, from 2000 to 2004, she worked for Fraser and Neave Foods Limited as the manager for Scientific Regulatory Affairs and was actively involved with the Singapore Institute of Food Science and Technology. Back in New Zealand in 2004, she was engaged in research as team leader for the Nutrition and Health Group at Crop and Food Research in Palmerston North. Many times in her career, she's assisted students or younger staff members to succeed, such as participating as one of the teams that created the food science courses at the University of Otago. Auckland. I'm sure she would have helped at Otago if asked. On retiring, she joined VSA, volunteering in Tanzania, advising in food and nutrition, and helping set up small food businesses. Throughout her career, she has stayed active and connected to the NZIFST and also with the equivalent group in Singapore, the SIFST. And this involvement extended to setting up a similar group in Tanzania, the TIFST. Earlier in her career, she worked hard to revitalise the Manawatu branch, and while chair, she participated in the process of combining the Wellington and Manawatu branches into now what is known as the Central Branch. She recognises the importance of the NZIFST for bringing together key members of the food science and technology to share ideas, to learn something, and to network. This year, J.C. Andrews Award recipient is a well-rounded, caring individual who seeks every challenges and uses these as opportunities. She gives her all to the task in hand and is also able to overcome difficulties and forge her way through to completing the job. I'm very pleased to announce our 2022 J.C. Andrews Award winner is Dr. Anne Perera.
It's a major task for me to stand here and match the previous recipients of J.C. Andrews Award. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizing committee, the president and the executive committee, and also Rosemary, very especially over the past several years, that she has been a great source of strength for us. So, I don't know, this seems like the cherry on the cake. I must admit that the cake was baked back home in Sri Lanka. And as one of the lawyers who spoke at Oxford Union address, he said, referring to himself, that was the icing on the cake, but the cake was baked back in Sri Lanka, so it's his words that I'm using. And also, this is a time that I like to share this award with many people, including the people of Sri Lanka, who's going through a very bad patch at the moment. Yeah, so I will take you through my presentation. I don't have any papers, script. It's a picture story, so bear with me, enjoy the pictures, and let's go around the world with me where I have been and before I came here, and also on several occasions there. Yeah, my topic I selected, my international journey in food science, technology, and nutrition. Okay, first of all, a tribute to late Dr. J.C. Andrews. He was a visionary, and he followed his dream. that's what I like to do with my life as well. The formation of Food Technology Department in 1961 was when he was the first chancellor of Massey University, but the planning started way back in the late 30s and went through 40s during the wartime as well as over the years. And sadly, he passed away in December 1966. The first J.C. Andrews Award started in 67 in his honor. So over the last 55 years, it has been going on, and I'm really, really humbled and honored to be one of the recipients of this award. And I'm also very grateful to NZIFST for selecting me for this J.C. Andrews Award this year. My sincere thanks to all those who have been involved in nominating, supporting, and recommending me. A very special word of gratitude to my husband, Conrad, for being my partner on this international journey. Well, this is where it started. In Sri Lanka, my first stop was India. From there to the US, Oregon State University. From there to Brazil, Brazil to New Zealand. From New Zealand, went to Singapore, came back, went to Tanzania, came back, and to complete the circuit, I have to do this one day. Yeah, so let me share with you what my key achievements in each of these countries were. Well, BSc Honours in Agriculture. I started as a farmer, not quite a farmer, but agriculture degree. I think Conrad says that I don't even know the plants in the garden. So he's the real farmer now. And BSc Agriculture in 69. So, Richard referred to 69 as the year that NZIFST got connected to NZIFST, so and a master's degree in Mysore, India in 1972, and a PhD from Oregon State University 77. And that same year we went to Brazil, and there I didn't do any exam, but I became a mother. So motherhood is one of my qualifications. Then came back, and then came to New Zealand in 1981. During that time, I also did an MBA through Massey University, so I'm a graduate of Massey. Counseling, psychology. I then went to Singapore, and during that time, I have always been interested in or curious about psychology. I did a diploma in counseling psychology on a part-time basis, and then year 2010 was my first assignment of volunteer service abroad, VSA, in Tanzania. So these are the 7 countries that I have lived in, traveled in several other countries, so they all feel like, my second home. And during my period, I also have contributed to 3 books. First one, I'll, cover these first 2 later. But this third one, which is called Thank You for Being My Father, was written as a tribute to a stepfather that I had for most of my life. My own father died when I was 6 months old, so I didn't know him except for a photograph. And my mother remarried when I was 12, which was very hard for me to accept. All I thought was somebody taking my mother away. But he was the best thing that happened to my life, and I am who I am. I am who I am today because of him. There are so many other people who have contributed to my life, but I like to offer this award to my own father. And I also like to acknowledge my God who has guided me over the years. Thank you. And so my first part of my education journey in food started in, at that time it was called University of Ceylon, Perera, now it's called University of Perera. And this was the university where I started my agriculture degree, 4-year degree, and during that time I was the class representative in the Ceylon University Agricultural Association from 65 to 69. And after graduating, I also served as an assistant lecturer in agricultural chemistry, and following that, received an FAO scholarship to do my master's degree in food technology. There was no food technology in Sri Lanka at that time. People haven't heard about that. So I developed an interest and searched and found that Mysore, FAO had a center in Mysore, and later they had advertised some scholarships, and I happened to get one of them. And so this is it. The building itself is a Maharaja's palace converted into a beautiful research institute. Some of you may have gone. We met one person who had also done his master's at CFTRI. So FAO International Training Center was situated within this building, which is the research institute, and that's part of the United Nations University, UN University. So to go to that, the government selected 2 students from each of the Southeast Asian countries. And the 2 that happened to be selected from Ceylon were Conrad and myself. We didn't know each other at that time, so but we processed our papers and flew together, and as complete strangers. And at the airport, my mother went and talked to his mother. They knew each other. They knew each other because they had been in teacher training college at the same time. But then later, she went and told him to look after me. So he's still looking after me. So that was a very, very fruitful 2 years. Not only the master's, but our relationship grew. But we didn't know what's going to happen after that. And we had, in our class, we had 20 young men. Some were not that young. We were mature students, but and 3 girls, 3 ladies. One from India, one from the Philippines, and myself. And some of the others here are the staff members. So this was our staff. And if you notice, it was from 1970 to 72. So this year is our golden jubilee of graduation. So at NZIFST, we hope that some of our members will come, and we are expecting to have a little celebration. And I have taken the task of putting a souvenir together. So I'm matching the pictures, 50 years ago and now, and trying to. So three have gone to heaven, and some we couldn't find them. So we have about 14 of our group that's meeting on Zoom, and quite active. So from there, I got a scholarship, an international scholarship to go to the United States, and that was in 1972. And to Oregon State University, I selected because the professor who suggested that I apply to this scholarship was a professor from Oregon State. So I could have selected any university, but I selected Oregon because of that. And that was in a city called Corvallis. And during that time, we both did our PhDs. My doctoral research was on vitamin B6 enrichment of wheat, and I studied both stability and bioavailability. It was based on this research that the US government added vitamin B6 into wheat flour, refined wheat flour. They had done the thiamine riboflavin before that, so pyridoxine came during my research. So, and I did the human bioavailability study using human beings, so that was a very interesting one. I won't go into details. So from here, and we also got married in 1973, and this is the Dr. Margie Woodburn who suggested that I apply to that scholarship. And for, her courtesy's sake, I said, Dr. Woodburn, I'm going to get married on such and such a day. She asked, are you going to have a reception? I laughed and I said, what reception? We couldn't afford because we were on a very tight budget. and didn't even have a vehicle, but we had 2 bicycles. I remember Conrad came later. He spent some time in Mozambique. And when he came, I had these 2 bicycles covered with a bed sheet, and I had written our 4 wheels. So that did serve as our 4 wheels for quite some time. So this Dr. Woodburn said, there's no wedding without a reception. I'll have the reception. You go and invite whoever you want. Let me know the number. And my first worry was, what am I going to wear? I had to borrow this dress from somebody. And anyway, we had a wedding and had some pictures too. So from there, 1977, we had the opportunity to go to Brazil. We could have stayed in the States, but Brazil opened up an opportunity, and we thought, that's a very rare opportunity. So we went there, and actually in 2012, the NZIFST was in Brazil. So I went back at that time and met up with some of our students, from 35 years ago. And they were like the professors, and they invited me to give a talk to their students. So I thought, it's like grandkids, they're like grand students for us. And that was very useful. So during the time that we were in Brazil, I got a grant to work on soybean, to promote soybean as a human food. They were using a lot of it as animal feed. And so the work got publicized in newspapers, and also I wrote a book in Portuguese called soya, there. And the Rotary Club also invited me to give a talk. Still remember that experience, because I started by saying, because the Portuguese language, like French, has got a gender for everything. So I said, if you say soya, it is feminine. If you say soya bean, it's masculine. So I asked, who says soya is male or female. So that got started, and I felt at ease at that time, although, it was a very daunting experience trying to give a talk in Portuguese. And then in 81, we came to New Zealand. Masterton was our first home here. And we have we got a son born to us in Brazil. And the newspaper, which is Wairarapa Times Age, put this saying, food is their business. And the Sri Lankan couple has such a string of degrees, and it seems like who's who. Some people used to ask, what are you doing in Masterton? But we really, really liked Masterton very much. I like to go back, although it's very, So our NZIFST introduction was in 1981, because people at Hansel's, we were working for Hansel's at that time. And at that time, the president was Graham Leith and Torben Sorensen. I still remember the very first conference was in Gisborne. And after the conference, we were taken round Botti's factory. And little did I know that a few years later, I would be the R&D manager for Botti's. And go back to the same factory many times. And in 1992, both Conrad and I were made fellows at the same time. I remember when 4 years ago, when Conrad got the J.C. Andrews Award, the president, Jonathan Cox, said, maybe we should have made this a joint award. If it was a joint award, I would have got only half. So I'm now getting a full award. Thank you. During our time, there were 2 couples whom we used to admire. We used to, have as our role models. That is Harry and Mary Lewin. Some of you may remember them. And Professors Dick and Mary Earle. So the 2 Marys were like my mentors. They were very... and Mary Earle was very close to me, in providing students for work. So Phil, they are Massey students too, whom I used to direct, and Otago too, yeah. And so when the time that we were back in Palmerston North, Dick and Mary Earle visited us in our home, and it was such an honor to have them be with us. Then in 87, I remember going to Otago University for the first Nutrition Society of New Zealand conference. And I wish at that time I had written the names of all these people. I'm sure some of you may recognize. I showed this picture to Pat Silcock and asked how many people can you tell the names of, and he tried to give me some names. I knew some of them, and there's, some of you may remember Professor Marian Robinson, and then the one next to her is Dr. Elsie Widdowson, who is a British nutritionist, very well known, and she had written books, and I used her textbook as a student in nutrition. So that's Elsie Widdowson, and also there's a whole lot of people, Dr. John Burke-Beck and Professor Jim Mann, and a whole lot of others. I'm happy to share this picture with a lot of people to get the names back. And also Dr. Cliff Tasman-Jones. In 1980s, when they were forming the New Zealand Nutrition Foundation, he had invited me to be the editor of the New Zealand Nutrition Foundation. And I told, I had just come at that time, and I said, Dr. Cliff Tasman-Jones, I know nutrition, but I don't know nutrition in New Zealand. So if you provide me with the information, I'm happy to put the newsletters together. So that's what happened. So, that's Professor Cliff Tasman-Jones. So the information that were given to me, I put together and prepared like a draft for a nutrition book for a future date. And in fact, I wrote this and I took it to a publisher in Masterton, and he looked at the text, the draft, and asked me, whom did you write this for? I said, average consumer. She said, too technical, go and humanize it. And I didn't know how to humanize it. I kept this manuscript in my drawer for about 10 years. And then by that time I had gone to Auckland and worked with at Watties, and they were also trying to put a nutrition policy together for the company. And here I was involved, and I was thinking of, in that drawer is a valuable document which is just sitting there. And I thought, now how am I going to humanize it? And I knew that there was a dietitian who had written books, Pip Duncan, and I asked Pip, would you like to co-author with me? She was very happy to do that. And we did that and published it through Longman Paul, and they called it Nutrition 2000. And the following year, we got the Nutrition Writer of the Year award for that publication. And at that time, I was working for Massey University, as a senior lecturer. So, and I also did a MBA in Massey, and later joined Kiwi Tech. I'm just moving fast, so I'm just going through the pictures and sharing with you. And all these 5 people at Kiwi Tech at that time were Massey graduates. After me, Richard also joined, another Massey graduate. And so it was a very interesting time going to Taranaki, and I really fell in love with that mountain. While I was there, I started writing poems, just like, creative things. And later on, when we were living in Singapore, the New Zealand High Commissioner organized an event called Kiwi Merlion Extravaganza and asked me whether I would like to share some of my poems. And I did, and for that item, I called it Taranaki Tranquility. And I still love Taranaki, and I said, would like to go and spend some time there. And one of those poems I presented in a poetry convention, and I still remember at that time I was working for FNN. My boss said, you don't even know whether these are real, I applied to go to this, and but I thought I'm going to go and see anyway. And I was so surprised, it was in Florida, and it was a very interesting experience, and I won a merit award for that. And I also have written poems which are related to food. One is called The Food We Eat, and another one is How Safe Is Our Food? I could have shared that with the morning speaker on food safety. And A Great Cup of Tea, which was actually inspired by Dilma. And I gave one of those copies framed to Mr. Dilma, Merrill Fernando. It's on his desk. And another hobby that I had was handicraft. I created this doll. It's not my original, and Women's Weekly put this because it was called Hello Dolly show competition. It said, her job is designing food, not dolls, but it was a doll making competition at her first attempt. So that was an interesting experience. So as Phil mentioned, in the year 2000, we went to Singapore, and I was working for Fraser and Neave as their nutritionist and scientific and regulatory affairs manager. And during that time, I was expected to go and talk in shopping malls and other places, in addition to doing my other jobs. So they used me for more public relations as well. And SNDA, which is, I was active in both SIFST and SNDA, which is Nutrition and Dietetics Association. They used to have this meet the nutritionist and 15-minute appointments. And then I came back to New Zealand in year 2004. Now, what brought me here is the tragedy that killed 7 scientists of crop and food. Some of you may remember that. And so this award is for them too. These were the 7 scientists who passed away. The following year, they had a memorial service, and I attended that. And so that was very special. And yes, we did revitalize the Manawatu branch during that time. And you might recognize some faces in this picture. And so it was good. And at the AGM, I was appointed as the chairman of the branch. And we formed the Manawatu, Wellington, and the Central. And during that time, we organized a technical tour of the Singapore group to come to New Zealand, which was a very successful one. And SIFST magazine put this, and this in this picture are also, Rosemary is also here. You can't see, but I have got the original photo of this. And Charles, Brenner and all these other people, plus, of course, Richard is there. I wondered whether this is what led to Massey University starting a branch in Singapore. Yeah. So that was very interesting. So following this tour, both SIFST and NZIFST formed a joint tour to China. And that I was organizing with Hong Chen. He's here somewhere. Where's he? There he is, yeah. So Hong and I had also worked at Kiwitech, when I was at Kiwitech in translating some promotional material to send to China, and even got an Oscar for, Kiwi Oscar at that time. So this was an interesting, although I couldn't go because I had fractured my wrist. So David Pooch stepped in, and it was another successful tour of 2 organizations going together. And so during that time, and Conrad couldn't come at the same time that I came back from Singapore because he had a contract with the National University of Singapore. So I came because I had to fill in one of those positions that was created from the air crash. And when he came, he was offered a position at Auckland Uni. And at that time, I was invited to work with Fresh Direct Limited, which is, some of you might know, which is like Turners and Growers. In fact, it's that same family who's running Fresh Direct. So during that time, a book that I had started writing in Singapore, which got completed after I joined Crop and Food Research with the help of Caroline Lister and Leslie Hedges. I'm very grateful to both of them because the book was mainly written by them. Although I had signed a contract with the Singapore publisher, and that was launched when I was working at Fresh Direct. And the gentleman in the middle here is Mr. Jeff Turner, who is the chairman of Fresh Direct. And when I launched the other book, which is my Nutrition 2000, his father, who is Mr. Jack Turner, former chairman of Turners and Growers, was there, along with Watty's chairman, Mr. Richard Jeffries. So while I was doing this, I felt that maybe I have worked enough in my life, and it's time to retire. Mostly, I wanted to complete my third book, that tribute to my stepfather, and I knew I would be able to write it better if I had gone back to Sri Lanka, where I spent my childhood years. And so I announced my retirement, and I got a cake made by my chef friend to match my business card. And when I took that, the Fresh Direct people say, oh, we can't cut this cake. How can we cut this cake? So it was a very special day, and they were sad to let me go. But knowing what I had done in the past, I still remember Jeff Turner telling, knowing what you have done, we know that there's something. And I didn't know what I was going to do until one day, Conrad brought a piece of paper and asked, do you want to go to Tanzania? So I thought, I had no idea of going to anywhere. I wanted to finish the book and think about other things. Anyway, if I had seen that and asked him, shall I go to Tanzania, he would have said, are you crazy? Yeah, but anyway, because I think God used him as the agent to tell me, spend some time in Tanzania. And it was interesting. I was based in a place called Arusha. During that time, Annie's daughter also visited. She was a medical student. It was very interesting. And this morning, I've been practicing my Swahili with Bob. So it's a lot of interesting connections. It's like actually connecting the dots in a life plan. So I was working for an organization called Small Industries Development Organization, SIDO for short. And there were two major projects. I know I'm running out of time. I started a little bit late because of that. One of which was candied peel. They were cutting this orange in a very beautiful way, very artistically. And, I was more interested in the peel, and they were, so can you see the middle picture there? So I asked my boss, what do they do with the peel? They said, they just throw. I said, can I take some? And I took some and made it into a candied peel, and they were all so surprised. And I even designed a packaging, and in fact, I put it like proposed and prepared by Anne Perera, because it was just, concept samples. And then and also chocolate coated some of them. And that became a real big hit there, because it was a waste product and utilized and a possible foreign exchange earner. And the information was written into two booklets in both English and Swahili. During that time, the newspaper put this article, SIDO adopts New Zealand food processing technology. So that was an interesting one, referring to this candied peel. And Singapore, SIFST also have been following me, wherever I went, and they would write about me. Because in addition to being a fellow of NZIFST, SIFST also made me a fellow. So there are two, as far as I know, Norman Lodge and I are the only two, of Singapore fellows, of NZIFST fellows as well. So the other project that I was quite involved, now this I can't give credit to New Zealand, is banana. Banana products, I think I have to tell this is from Sri Lanka or that part of the world. And they were eating the green bananas as a vegetable or staple, and ripe bananas as a table fruit. And but the green peel, the banana blossom, and this middle pith can also be cooked into very delicious, nutritious vegetables. So that became like a real hit, and VSA was quite keen to share that information with a lot of other volunteers from other countries as well. And during my time in Tanzania, there were 3 NZIFST members and 1 SIFST member who came to help me as well as to see the country and go on safari. And Miang Lim from Otago University, Eric Watson from Fruco, and Conrad came from here, New Zealand, and Dr. Lee came from Singapore. And when Conrad came, he designed a solar dryer, and we got it built and used that for training of trainers, which was very popular. And there's also a Rotary, beautiful story. If you happen to read, look for St. Jude's School. And this lady is an Australian lady who has started a school, started with 3 students. Now there are 2,000 students in her care. And very interesting, fighting poverty through education. And we heard earlier, one of the speakers in the other room talked about the Sustainable Development Goals. Yes, fighting poverty through education was that. And one major important project I also did in Tanzania was to set up the Tanzania Institute of Food Science and Technology. They had started one, but never kind of got off the ground. And I offered to help, and Sally Hassel, who was the president here, and Dr. Lee from Singapore, they helped me to get the thing going. And we first met as a group, and then we launched it, and by that time they had put the name TAFST. So this TAFST will be connected to IUFOST this year. But before that, I did, the TIFST that I formed was connected in 2012 in Brazil. And then the following year, I went back to Tanzania on another assignment and gave this to the Tanzanian people. Now, my 50th Jubilee celebrating, people of the master's degree. Now, we are all over around the world. Instead of just, celebrating, we also thought, now what can we do to the, world? And we organized an outreach project, all online, for Tanzania, and did a series of seminar for them. So, and I'm also currently working with the Sri Lankan Association and trying to connect with IUFOST, and I hope that I'll be able to sustain. So if you don't see me in NZIFST, you know where to find me. Either TIFST or Sri Lankan. So when Esra's time comes, Anyway, in conclusion, I would like to thank NZIFST for recommending me for this prestigious award this year. I am ever so grateful to all who have contributed to my journey around the world, and especially to Conrad, who has accompanied me every step of the way. And I hope to continue my journey as long as I can, or until my expiry date. I have a motto in life, which is, I aspire to inspire before I expire. I also have a poem, but I think I'll pass it on to Anne if she wanted to put it in the magazine, because it first got published in Food and Beverage Asia, which is the official publication of SIFST in year 2000. So I won't read it, but it's like a nutrition lecture in a poem. Thank you.
So who's been inspired by Anne? Thank you very much, Anne.
Thank you.